Hi guys, Nacho Mama here. Today I'm going to be talking about something I don't really talk about, something that I've not really expressed to too many people, something that I kind of have been battling in myself and with myself, and that is my recovery from being a methamphetamine addict. Um, I'm almost a whole year sober. I recovered on purpose. All because of a man, Adam Gunton, who wrote this book right here called Chains to Saved: One Man's Journey Through the Spiritual Realm of Addiction. I was in the middle of being a hardcore addict, and I randomly had this person pop up in my DMs because I had my relationship status set to in an open relationship, but it didn't say with who. I always said that I was in an open relationship with the universe or God, like I married the universe. A couple of years before that, I grew up in one of the poorest neighborhoods in Las Vegas, Nevada, called Naked City, 315 Boston Avenue. For any of you that know anything about Vegas, it's right behind the Stratosphere. And me and my little brother and my mom shared a studio bedroom apartment, and I was a very, very unruly teenager. Like, I was a very, very unruly teenager. I ditched my entire freshman year, half my sophomore year. I got kicked out my junior year. I went to Job Corps and got kicked out of Job Corps. I started doing drugs when I was really young. And I had already had about 10 years under my belt when I found out that I was pregnant. And I spent the majority of my adult life sober, being a mom. And then I went through one of the darkest, most traumatic experiences of my life, where I was dating a person who was doing inappropriate things with his daughter. And before me and this person hooked up, like, I had a tattoo shop. I was doing really good in life, and I started noticing weird behavior with him and his 2-year-old daughter at the time. So I stopped going to the tattoo shop. I stopped going to work. I spent every waking moment in constant fear. And this person used my own history of sexual abuse against me to try to cover up what he was doing with his daughter. And I spent about 2 years trying to prove it, trying to fight it, trying to not believe it. I did a lot of research. I went to 2 different therapists twice a week. I was living in a mental hell. Like, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, really. And one of the hardest things that I ever had to do in my life was sit in my therapist's office and make a phone call to Department of Human Services, to DHS, and tell them that the person that I loved was doing inappropriate things with his daughter. And after that happened, I spent a very long time very angry with universe, very, very angry with God. I was pissed, man. I was a very, very upset, pissed off spirit, for sure. Like, I couldn't believe that after everything that I had been through, that universe would put me in that position. And I understand now why it happened. Because if it wasn't for me, who knows what would have happened to that little girl, Of course, I mean, I never got to talk to the police. I only got to talk to baby mama, and then nothing happened to him, but she took her daughter and moved out of state. So at least there was something, right? That is one of the, like, predators are one of the most narcissistic, sociopathic liars that there are. I did a lot of research on, um, you know, like the signs, like grooming signs, like research on recovery, research on every type of research that there is. And 1 out of every 4 males in a room, statistically speaking, have either already committed such a crime, or if they thought that they would get away with it, they would. And it made it really difficult for me to sit in my son's auditorium around all these children and all these men, thinking about all these things. And he thought he got away from me, and it just kept repeating in my mind everything that ever happened, everything that I ever didn't want to believe, everything that I thought I saw but wasn't sure if I seen, always was on repeat in my head over and over again. And the only thing that I could hear was, what about the children, Crystal? What about the children? Like, what are you going to do? What do you wish your mom would have done? What do you think your mom's mom wished that she would have done? Like, I kept hearing all these ancestors in my head. Like, what about the children, Crystal? What about the children? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I kept asking myself, well, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? I mean, I loved this person. I did not want to believe at all that that was actually the reality. And when it finally boiled down to it, like, I had to make a decision. I had to make the decision if I was going to turn the other cheek or if I was going to say something. And saying something was probably the hardest thing, one of the hardest, most brutal experiences that I have ever experienced, was turning somebody that I loved in as a chomo, like calling and making that phone call and really coming to terms with, like, no, Crystal, like, every time you look, it's there. Even when you're not looking, it's there, He would scream at me and tell me that I was crazy, for even questioning him. Like, oh, well, I don't want to get into too many details because I don't want to trigger too many people out there. But after I made that decision, which was so very difficult for me, I was always one of those persons like, oh yeah, if I ever found my man doing some shit, I would cut his balls off and, yada yada. And I spoke all this shit and talked all this shit. And then universe put me in that position. And universe was like, okay, well, what are you going to do, Crystal? What are you going to do? What do you wish your mom would have done? What do you wish your mom's mom would have done? What does every child out there that is going through the same experience wish somebody would do? And it made me realize that how there's a lot of us out there that have been abused that think that nothing happened, that nobody cared. And from my personal experience, it came to my awareness that it wasn't that they didn't care. It's just they weren't strong enough. They weren't strong enough to actually face that reality. So anybody that's gone through that type of experience with their parents or some shit, like, oh, why didn't my mom care that my dad was doing these things to me? Or why didn't my mom care? Or why didn't anybody care? Chances are they really weren't strong enough to see the reality of that was going on and face it. It took everything that I had to make that decision, knowing that it was the right decision. It still left me in absolute shambles for years, because nothing happened to him. His whole family was after me. Like, I'd never had enemies before, so I didn't know who was out to get me. I didn't know who was coming around the corner. I didn't know what was going to happen, so I spent years terrified. Like, I quit my band because I was terrified of who was coming around the corner. I pretty much locked myself away to heal, and once I did some healing, I dedicated myself to the universe, and I tattooed this tree of life on my palm. and I married the universe. I used to wear my pentacle on my ring finger, and I married the universe. And shortly after that, I ended up hooking up with somebody that I could not leave alone. Like, there were red flags all over the place, but for some reason I couldn't leave him alone, you know? And I knew that he was lying to me, and I knew that he was up to something, but I wasn't sure what. And one day I brought him to a friend's house that I knew did drugs or whatever, and I wanted him to be more open with me and to trust me. So I put myself in a fucked up, dangerous position, and allowed myself to do drugs with my new boyfriend to try to make him feel more comfortable, to try to make him, open up to me more, to be more real with me. And I spent all of my adult life, from the time I found out I was pregnant until that moment, sober. I wouldn't even kick it with people that did drugs, I was very, very anti all of that. And when I tell you that I took one hit off that pipe and caught myself up for a good 5 years after that. It took 5 years for me to pull my head out of my ass and realize how blessed I really, truly, truly am. I always made excuses, oh, well, even though I knew I was on a spiritual path, I was like, well, I'm a light worker, and light workers don't need to be surrounded by people that are doing good. Light workers need to be in the dark in order to help the people that are in the dark, I made lots of excuses for why I was doing what I was doing. And nothing would make it click to make me stop. I always had my bedroom door shut. I spent a lot of years locking my son away from me. Not only did he get locked out of my life when I was in complete trauma, I was here, I've always been physically present, but mentally not so much the whole time, And then one day, this guy ended up inside of my inbox out of nowhere. And I was in a band, so I have a lot of friends on my Facebook that were mostly musicians. I did a lot of networking, so I have close to 5,000 people on my Facebook. So I had a lot of people that would randomly show up in my inbox here or there or whatever. But this one day, this man named Adam Gunton showed up in my inbox and randomly asked me about polyamory or polyamory relationships, because I had my relationship status set to open. Even though I was in an open marriage with the universe, he randomly ended up in my inbox asking me questions about polyamory, and I was like, well, who am I even talking to? And I didn't pay much attention until a little while later. I noticed that this guy, Adam, had started this group called Recovered on Purpose. And that phrase right there, recovered on purpose, was the only thing that got me to stop doing drugs, to stop smoking methamphetamine. Was my stubborn ass have a tendency to, when I say something, I mean it, and I used to make jokes back in the day, oh, this moment of silence was brought to you on purpose, or brought to you by mistake. Please ignore all future moments of silence, So when I saw that phrase come across my screen, recovered on purpose, something inside of me just clicked, bloop, I want to say that. But the only way that I could say that was by actually meaning it, right? So I looked into what his mission was about, and it was a guy that wrote this book right here. It's called Chains to Saved: One Man's Journey Through the Spiritual Realm of Addiction. and I went to my first NA meeting. I showed up a little bit late and almost didn't even walk in the door. I was terrified, absolutely terrified. I'd never been to an AA meeting before or an NA meeting. I'd never ever been on that side of the fence. And I walked in, and the only seat available was right up front. So, I mean, I'm panicking. Had already started being sober, you know, because of this whole, no, recovered on purpose. I wanted to say that. I wanted to say it, and I wanted to mean it. And I ended up being able to hug this man right here, Adam. And he signed my book for me. This is Crystal. I'm so honored to have been a part of introducing you to what helped me so much to recover. I pray God continues to bless you and keep you in his loving arms. God bless you, Adam Gunton. Right? Well, I have continued to stay sober. I have continued to recover on purpose. And I'm in the process of writing my recovery story and writing my book. There are a lot of details that, I mean, I can't obviously put them all together right here, right now, but I ran across his testimonial video last night out of nowhere, just in my news feed, because I look up a lot of spiritual stuff, and his testimony, which I'd never seen before, came rolling across my news feed, and I watched it, and it brought me to tears. And I got down on my knees and I prayed. And I mostly gave thanks. I mean, I've been so blessed so many times. There's been so many situations that I've put myself in where things could have gone so much different. I went from zero to gangster really fast, man. Like, I went from not doing drugs and being completely anti-drug to being a drug dealer, pretty much. Well, not pretty much, I was. And I found myself inside of stolen cars, getting pulled over by the police, not knowing that I was in a stolen car, and getting out like it was nothing, you know, like, oh, thanks, officer, you know, thanks, homie, for dropping me off. I need to get, you know, to my van, blah, blah, blah. And the cop stayed and talked to me, and my homie drove away. And the very same night, he was shot by the cops, and they made him a quadriplegic. And how... I can't even describe to you how absolutely blessed and how just thankful I am that things didn't go the way that they could have went, that they went in this direction instead. You know, I've been watching YouTube tarot card readings now for about 3 years, and I've learned more from the tarot community than I did the whole time that I was in therapy. The spiritual community has taught me more and has helped me grow on a spiritual level more than I could ever really relate with words. And if there's somebody out there that's struggling with addiction, and doesn't feel like you have any hope, or that it will never quit, that nothing's ever going to change, I promise you, you can change. I promise that it can happen. It is possible. And for those of you that are out there dealing with addicts, just have a space in your heart, man. Hold space in your heart for them, because you can't change them. Nobody can change them. Nobody could change me. Not even going through and having some of the worst experiences with my mom, like my mom finding out and my son finding out, and none of that, not even my friend getting shot by the cops made me stop. The only thing that made me stop was coming across a phrase, one simple phrase: recovered on purpose. And I couldn't be more thankful for this man right here, Adam Vibe Gunton. I'll drop a link in the description box. Please go and check him out. He's really into people telling their stories. All of our stories, all of our survival stories have purpose. On purpose with purpose. You know, not only do I say this tarot reading is brought to you on purpose with purpose, because I've recovered on purpose with purpose. Because I'm here on purpose for a purpose. And so are you. And so is the person that you love that's recovering or in a an active addiction. I love you guys. Give yourself a hug tonight, okay? And forgive yourself. Much love.